Hello and welcome to the CFES live chat. We're excited to have Colonel Anthony Johnson, Director for Leadership and Diversity in STEM at the United States Military Academy at West Point, here to give a short presentation and to answer your questions about the importance of STEM education. Before we begin, just a few reminders. We'll be recording today's chat and making it available to everyone in the CFES network. We'll be sending that out to all of our liaisons, and you can share that with your school.
Okay, great. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this Skype chat. I've really been looking forward to this for some time, and I'm always eager and very happy to share, what we do and what our goals are as far as STEM education. Like what was said in the intro, I'm the director for the Center for Leadership and Diversity in STEM at the United States Military Academy at West Point. And basically what we focus on is basically outreach to underserved communities and underrepresented populations in STEM at the middle school level. One of the reasons why we focus and target middle schoolers is because we believe that at middle school, if you intervene early enough, you're at a point where you can have an effect on the students making better choices when they go to high school and making sure that they take the requisite courses necessary to take advantage of opportunities that will be present for them when they become seniors. The United States Military Academy and the other service academies are just a part of those opportunities to be available to them. But we're looking at opportunities for them to be STEM scholars and actually go and major in STEM fields when they go to college. Now, why is that important? Well, we believe that STEM career fields and the lack of STEM talent in our nation is a strategic issue that we're going to have to address as a nation. Before 9/11, 2001, industries made up their shortfall in STEM talent by going overseas. That has become increasingly more difficult as the security situation around the world becomes a little more tenuous. It is not as easy to go to, say, a Pakistan or India or China and bring this talent to the United States. We believe that this talent is here already, but they lack the requisite skills necessary in order to compete and be successful at those jobs. So how do they do that? Well, I'll give you a story of many times I would encourage and encounter students who in their senior year, the light comes on and all of a sudden they are excited. Maybe they want to go to West Point. Maybe they might even want to be an engineering or science major. The problem, they're excited, I'm excited, is when we sit down and look at their transcripts, they haven't done what's necessary in order to capitalize on an opportunity that might be present for them. What does that mean? That means maybe they didn't take enough math. They didn't take enough science. They took too little analytic classes, that kind of thing. So how can we address that? Well, if you target the middle schooler and they're making decisions in their freshman year about the classes that they want to take, and they include 4 years of math, 4 years of some type of science, a chemistry, a biology, well, now they're in a better position to take advantage of the opportunities that would be present for them. I barely graduated from high school. I was not prepared for college. In fact, I had no opportunities to go to college because my grades were so poor. So I enlisted in the military. And that turned out to be a really good thing for me because while I was in the military, I had the opportunity to go to college. My first college class was English 101. I'll never forget the teacher asked the question and she said, I'm going to put on the board everything you need to do in order to get an A. And I remember thinking to myself, someone wake me up when she gets to what you need to do in order to get a C. Because why work so hard to get an A when a C would do? This kind of mentality was how I went through school. That was my academic, resume. I get the lowest possible grade to still pass. And as I was sitting there, something hit me. I don't know what it was, voice, an idea, but it said basically this: why not try? Why not try today? I tell you what, you do the best that you can today in this class and let the chips fall where they may. If you get an A, you get an A. If you get a C, well, that's what you're going to get anyway. But why don't you try and do your best? Okay, so I sat up in my seat and I began to take notes about what was necessary to get an A. Well, believe it or not, I got an A in that class, and I got an A in every other class I took after that. When I graduated, I had a 4.0 GPA. I would have never dreamed that that was even possible. And I don't know why I did so poorly in high school, but the bottom line is something happened to me that day. And what I believe happened was that I was inspired. I believe that I had an encounter that inspired me to want to do better. This is the encounter that we're trying to set up for middle schoolers. Because if they have that encounter in middle school, they won't have to be 4,000 miles away from home before they realize that they need to go ahead and do their best. And it was in this environment that I became a math major. I went on to get my bachelor's degree in math. I got 2 master's degrees and a PhD. I credit the inspiration of that moment, the epiphany you could say, for giving me the spark that lit the fire for my academic career. Now, what would happen if we could light that same fire in a middle schooler as they're preparing for 8th grade and high school? They would be so much farther. And that is the idea behind our center. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take these robots, these drones, these quadcopters, these bridge building apparatuses, and whatever we have to do to bring the student to a point where they succeed at something analytic and STEM related. And we're hoping that they will have the same type of epiphany that I did, except when they're in middle school as opposed to after they've already graduated from high school and are in the military or whatever else they're doing. I'm hoping that we can spark and inspire them at middle school. And with that inspiration, they could go on to become STEM scholars into a STEM career and a STEM career path that will lead them to success. If they do that when they're in high school, it's not just West Point that they can take advantage of. They can take advantage of the plethora of opportunities that will be available to them because they have the requisite skills. And so that's kind of the impetus of what we're doing and why we feel it is important to engage these students at middle school. And the hope, of course, is that becoming STEM scholars, they will be able to take advantage of the multiple and the myriad of STEM opportunities that are out there. And it will be a service not only to them and to their communities, but also to our country. And so I wanted to give you guys an idea of why we're here and why the military, why the Army would be interested in outreach efforts to middle schoolers. And this is why. We're not here to necessarily recruit. We're not a recruiting arm of the Academy, but we're trying to build a pool of qualified applicants who, if they wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to come to West Point, they'd be in a position to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep.
So we have a few questions from our schools.
Okay.
And the first is, what do you view as an obstacle to interest in STEM education?
Okay, what do I view as an obstacle to, you say?
To students having an interest in
STEM education. So there's a myth that I always like to debunk. And the myth is that, I hear students say, well, I don't want to go into math because math is hard. And the first thing I do in really dealing with that myth is I ask the question and I ask them, I say, well, what do you like to do? And they would say, oh, well, I like to, let's just say, I like to dance. And I may say something like this. I would say, oh, well, dancing is so easy. And they would say, well, no, it's not. dancing is not easy. And I would say, well, sure it is. I mean, dancing is so easy. That's why you like to dance. And they would go through this long, long list of things that they're doing in their dance, and well, how much they have to practice, and how difficult some of the moves are, and what they're doing. And I says, well, why would you do something that's so hard? And the point is, they do it because they like it, because they decided that that's what they wanted to do. So the fact that it's difficult is not a stop, to doing it. They wade through the difficulty, and so I bring back to them and I say, you say that math is hard and that's why you don't want to do it. I say, I guarantee you, if you decided that you wanted to be a math major, you wouldn't find it any more difficult than any other endeavor that you're taking in your life. So the first myth is that math is hard. Math is easy if you practice, just like anything else that people do. Everything you do is going to take practice. And so I tell them, these subjects, math, science, engineering, they're not hard. They just require practice. When I do problems on the board for my students, I can feel their eyes behind me, and they're agreeing that, yes, that I agree that you know how to work that problem. Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them to the point where they can work the problem and they can do it themselves, not just agree that I know how to do it. And I will be quick to turn around and say, guys, I am nothing special. The only reason why I know how to do this well is because I do it a lot and I practice. Anything that you do a lot and that you practice doing, you will be good at. And so the interest in math has to come via another way. It has to come from another vehicle. And so we use robotics. Hey, you like playing with these robots? You like programming them? You're going to have to learn math. We might use quadcopters, teaching them the equation of lift and how rotary winged aircraft actually lift off the ground and move. Oh, you like that? You like programming these aircraft? Well, guess what? You're going to have to learn math. So the key to getting them to have interest in STEM is find out what they're interested in first, and then you can show them how STEM undergirds what they're interested in. Once you get that locked together, whether it's hard or not becomes kind of a moot point.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great advice. And then what do you view as some of the essential skills for being a successful college student? So what would you say to someone who's starting college, freshman year? What do they need to be successful?
Okay, that's a very good question. If you want to be successful as an undergraduate student, you have to understand what you are attempting to attain. You are trying to get a bachelor's degree. Now, I always ask my students when I'm explaining this, I say, okay, now what is a bachelor? And so the first thing they say, that's somebody who goes out and, they're just partying and they're having fun. Yeah. But let's get to the root of the word. What is a bachelor? What are they really? Well, there's someone that's not married. There's someone who is independent. And I said, that is the key. To be a bachelor, you must be independent. And so what we're saying when we award you a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Arts, what we're saying is that you have demonstrated that you can learn independently and that you can grasp these concepts outside the tutorship of a, Mrs. Brown or your teacher. Right? You have demonstrated that you can get a book, you can read that book, and you can understand it. And what you need is simply a place where you can ask questions, have your questions answered. But the teacher, the professor in front of you is not the teacher. Over the course of your undergraduate career, you become the teacher. And you become responsible for your own education. So if you want to be successful in college, you have to learn how to study. You have to learn how to teach, how to become an independent learner. And the way you do that is you get the text, you get the book, and you read. That is the only way that you're going to learn the material. You will not learn the material by coming in and listening to the lecture. You have to demonstrate that you can study on your own. And the way that I tell people to do it in a math class is very simple. You get an index card, you get the book, You read the section of the book that tells you the concept that you're trying to learn, and you put an index card over the example, and you pull it down line by line as you understand the material. That is the only way that you're going to learn it. And when you get to a point where it's so difficult that you can't learn it at all, guess what? That's when you go into the professor and you raise your hand and you say, hey, I have a question about this or that. At the United States Military Academy, we have something, what we call the Thayer method. And the Thayer method capitalizes on this principle. And basically it goes like this. We give the students the lesson and the homework assignment before they come to class. When they come to class, they have already studied the lesson, attempted the homework problems, and when they come to class armed with questions about the material, not hearing it for the first time. They're actually hearing it for the second time when we do the lecture. And so that is one of the things that we found to be very helpful in helping our students succeed. And I guarantee once you start demonstrating your ability to be an independent learner, you'll find college a lot easier and you'll find your rate of success to go up.
Perfect. Thank you. So, as you've said many times, you are from West Point. That is where you work and live. And how would you explain the culture of West Point to maybe a student who's never heard of it before?
Oh, that's a great question. So, the culture of West Point is one that is geared on three main focuses, right? There is a military aspect where if you were to look around West Point, you see all these people in uniform, right? And these army and military uniforms. And there's a military aspect of that. But you're going to also see these same students immersed in a very, comprehensive and very complex academic setting. In other words, although they're wearing these military uniforms, they're taking very, very deep classes. They're taking 4 semesters of English. They're taking 3 semesters of a calculus-based mathematics, 1 semester of statistics. They're taking 2 semesters of physics. They're taking all of these courses, and these are their core classes. So they come away well-rounded academically. But the third thing you're going to see them doing is you're going to see them very involved physically. You're going to see them taking part in sports. You're going to see them taking part in intramurals. And the intramurals is not just a bunch of guys going out and just throwing the football or throwing the basketball. You're going to see them in very coordinated and well-rehearsed leagues that are refereed, that are the scores are kept and tallied, and you're going to see a healthy spirit of competition amongst each other in these intramural sports. And the reason is because it's academics, it's their military instruction, but it's also a physical fitness component that goes with it. And so, a lot of times I like to say, and I tell my colleagues, if, for instance, if one day I come to class and a student cannot remember a calculus rule for, let's say, the sine of x, and I say, well, what is the derivative of sine of x? And they look a little dazed, like somebody probably punched them in the head and they just can't remember. It's quite likely that they just could have come from boxing and they literally were punched in the head. And so we definitely give them the benefit of the doubt. We know that they're doing athletics, they're doing swimming, and they're so enthusiastic about all these 3 levels, their military education, their academic education, and their physical fitness education, that we understand that there's a give and take. Because what we're looking for is not the scholar alone, not the general or the military guy alone or person alone, and not even the athlete alone. We're looking for that well-rounded person who can excel at all 3. And that's the challenge that we give people and the one that they rise to over and over and over again. We believe that that 3-legged table is the foundation for a strong and persistent leader. And that's what we're really looking at. What you're going to see if you come to West Point is you're going to see leaders in development.
Perfect. Then one last question. What advice would you give to a scholar who is interested in attending West Point?
Okay, so my advice to a scholar that's interested in attending West Point. Number one, make sure that scholarship is not all that you're doing. What you want to demonstrate to the committee is that you are a leader. So what you want to do is you want to participate in your student government. You want to participate in clubs and not just be a participant in the club. You want to try to reach the officers of that club. You want to try to be the president of that club. Boys State is a very good place to go. Scouting is also a very good place. Any type of setting where you're in a group and you can demonstrate that you were a leader of that group, you definitely want to do. That's number one. Number two, you want to demonstrate that you are an athlete. Be it you want to be on the basketball team or the football team, or you want to be on some type of athletic team. And in that team competition, you want to show that you were a leader of that team. So you want to aspire to become a captain of the team. So you might say, well, I'm not good enough to make our basketball team or our football team or any other sporting team. Well, that's okay. Show that you were active in your athletics. You want to go out and you want to run. You want to demonstrate that you have an athletic prowess and that you view athleticism the same way you view your scholarship. You try to get better and better and better. So any event or any activity that you can show athletic improvement makes your file a lot better. Finally, I would say, don't forget the scholarship. Continue to work on your scholarship. What we're looking for is we're looking for the warrior scholar. We're looking for that person who have demonstrated in these other areas of leadership and athleticism that their scholarship isn't neglected. And if you do those three things, I think that you have a better than average chance of coming to not just our academy, but any of the service academies.
Perfect. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Okay, yeah.
I would like to just take a moment to thank everyone for joining us. The video of today's chat will be available on our website, collegefes.org, and I would encourage you to join us in our next live chat on February 17th at 2 p.m. with Dr. John Fortune. Thank you.